ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। So today we'll be discussing some verses of the Gita. Very important, of course. The whole of the Gita is very important, but these verses deal with the topic which is very near to our heart, happiness. So it may be one of the greatest wonders of the world that all of us are searching for happiness without any exception. But most of us don't even know what happiness means. So whole life we spend in thinking some objects that they will bring us happiness, or some people of the world will bring us happiness, some occasions will bring us happiness, some belongings may bring us happiness. So searching for these things takes away all our energies, and we spend our whole life in searching for this happiness where it does not exist. That is the greatest tragedy. That is why Swami Vivekananda says, man is searching for happiness in the outside world, but for ages, saints and sages have taught us that it does not exist there. There is no happiness in the senses, in the sense pleasures. So, taking compassion upon us, Sri Krishna tells us what kinds of happiness there may be, and actually there is no exact translation for this word sukha which is used in the Bhagavad Gita. So here when we discuss these three kinds of happiness, we should remember that the last two which will be mentioned are really more akin to pleasures. They cannot really be called happiness. So that will be clear when we discuss those verses. So regarding this subject, let us see what Swami Brahmananda, Raja Maharaj, has said, because his words are extremely simple, so we can easily realize their import. So I will just quote him. Once he said, "Do you know the nature of an ordinary man? He seeks only pleasure and enjoyment, and he makes this mistake from the very beginning." From the very beginning means as soon as he starts thinking for himself, he makes this mistake. 99% of those who seek happiness do not know where it really is. They grasp at whatever they find near at hand and believe they have got the thing they seek. But when they are disappointed, they take up something else. And when they fail again, they bemoan their lot. But see the folly of it. They are disappointed again and again. Still they will not change their course. They will not take up the right path. They pass their lives receiving blow after blow and bewailing their destiny. Sri Ramakrishna used to compare them to a camel. Camel knows very well that thorny grass makes the mouth bleed, but still it insists on eating it. In the same way, human beings suffer because of wrong thoughts and wrong desires. So, this paints a very beautiful picture of how we generally spend our lives, because we do not even care to examine that the happiness we are after, what can it really be? What is its nature? So, God, in His compassion, tells us in great detail about all these things. So, today we will see in a very brief manner that what true, again, happiness is not the correct word here, what true bliss is, and what are the other two kinds of pleasures which we mistake for real happiness. So, this is the thing. So, let us start from the verses now, because we have very little time. In order to complete, we have to just discuss in a brief way. So, here the order which Shri Krishna follows is that he starts from the best, the true kind of bliss which we are seeking. Then he descends to one step lower, and then he again descends to the last type of pleasure which should be avoided at all costs. So he starts from the very highest. So let us see this. I will just share the image of the verse. Yeah, now you can see, I think. I hope you can see the verse here. So, the verse we will chant first in Sanskrit, and this transliteration is given for those who cannot read Devanagari, and of course the translation is at the end. So we will chant from 36 to 37, two verses. Sukham tvidanim trividham shrinu me bharatarshava abhyasat ramate yatra dukkhantam cha nigacchati yattat agre visham iva pariname mritopamam tat sukham sattvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. So we have to understand this, the layout, the plan of these verses. The first line says, Sukham tvidanim trividham shrinu me bharatarshava. That, O Arjuna, now listen to me about the three kinds of happiness or three kinds of joy. And from the very next line, Sri Krishna starts with the description of the highest bliss. So this is the thing. First he says, now hear from me about the three kinds of joy. And then immediately he starts describing the highest bliss. So these lines we have to separate from the first shloka. Sukham tvidanim trividham shinu me bharatarshava. Now hear from me, O Arjuna, as regards the three kinds of joy. After this immediately he starts telling us about the highest joy. This is the thing. So what are the characteristics of that joy? Now let's examine those words one by one. First of all, he says, Abhyasat ramate yatra. This is the first point. What does he say? One delights in that joy owing to habit. This is the first point we should remember. The highest kind of joy, which is our goal to attain, only can be had when we are habituated, when we are practicing, when we are striving for that joy. Abhyasa means practice. So this is the first point to remember, that this joy will not drop out of the skies all of a sudden. We have to strive for that. This is the first thing. And the next point is dukkhantam. Dukkha is sorrow, anta is termination, cessation. This is the second point is about this highest kind of joy, that it will end all our sorrows. Certainly, there is no doubt about that. So, the joy, highest joy, we have to attain only by diligent practice. This is the first thing. Second thing is, it will end all our sorrows. There is no doubt about that. Now, what is the problem? Why most of us don't attain that joy? That is described from verse 37, which is also before you. So, the main difficulty Shri Krishna describes, what is that? Yat tad agre visham iva. Visha is poison. Agre means in the beginning. So here lies the difficulty. In the beginning, striving for that joy seems like drinking poison. That is the thing. It is so painful, arduous. But in the end, as a result, pariname, what is the result? Result is comparable to nectar. So although in the beginning it is extremely difficult to attain that bliss, but as a result we will attain the cessation of all sorrows and also enjoy infinite, unlimited, pure bliss, which does not even have a trace of sorrow. That bliss, tat sukham, what is it called? Satvikam. That kind of bliss is called sattvika pleasure, which means the highest kind of pleasure. And what is the source of that pleasure? The source is Atma Buddhi Prasada. Prasada of Atma Buddhi. It arises from clearness of the comprehension of the self. Two types of buddhis are there. One is Vishaya Buddhi, that is the buddhi that is attached to the worldly objects, which has the objects of the world as its matter of concern. That is Vishaya Buddhi, which we all have, which we are all familiar with. But this kind of buddhi, this kind of intelligence is what? It has for its object the Atman, that is God or self or the Atman. And because the self is clearly perceived by that buddhi that gives rise to this kind of bliss. So let us go through it again. What is the first point which Sri Krishna makes? That this kind of highest bliss can only be gained by abhyasa or practice. This is the first thing. Second thing is, it will lead to cessation of all kinds of misery. All our problems will be solved forever. Then he says, what does this bliss arise from? This bliss arises from the comprehension or the realization of our own higher self, which is God. Fourth thing which he mentions, that is the difficulty which is encountered when we try to seek that bliss. What is the difficulty? The difficulty is that in the beginning, it is so difficult to attain that striving for that bliss seems like as if we are being asked to drink poison. That is the thing. So now let us go into a little detail. So we will take the help of some commentaries. So Shri Krishna says to Arjuna, O Arjuna, now you from me, Shrinu. Shrinu means you hear. Then in the commentary it is said, by dispelling other attractions, make your mind steady. Mana sthiri kuru. So this is what Shri Krishna says. Now Arjuna, you leave aside everything. If you are habituated to think of this and that, what is your bank balance, what is being cooked for today, and how you will get pizzas and burgers, you cannot comprehend this truth. So leave aside everything. Leaving aside everything, now hear me with attention. This is the thing. So what is the reason for Shri Krishna telling? So commentator Madhusudan Saraswati tells us that Heya Upadeya Vivekartham, distinguishing between what is to be accepted and what is to be rejected. That is why you should know. Raja Maharaj, what did he say in the verse which we had, in the quotation which we had seen? Raja Maharaj had said that the problem with us is we grasp whatever is near at hand, thinking that that person or thing will bring us happiness. So here Shri Krishna says, no, don't do that. First learn from me what is to be accepted. When you are seeking for happiness, what is to be accepted and what is to be rejected also. So hear with attention. This is the thing. Now he says, the bliss which is born of sattva, which is the bliss of samadhi, that is our goal. And that bliss can only be had by abhyasa, owing to habit, through intense familiarity. It is not instant joy we get from sense pleasures. This is the difference. Why does this abhyasa word is so important? Now when we eat an ice cream or something, we don't need to practice to get that joy. As soon as it goes into the mouth, it brings us pleasure. No practice is needed. It is instantly available. But this joy is not like that. You can't go to the market and purchase it for a few dollars. We have to earn this joy. Earn this joy by practice. This should be remembered. And then he describes the other characteristic that by getting this joy, when gets this joy, he attains the cessation of all sorrows. Sarvasya api dukkha. All sorrows without exception. This is the main characteristic of that joy. So when we get some worldly joy, all our sorrows will not be eliminated. when we eat an ice cream or when we go to a movie or when we gossip with our friends, it is just for the time being, just a few minutes, that's all. But it will not help us get rid of any of our problems of life, not at all. But this kind of joy will get rid of all our sorrows for all time to come. That is the biggest thing. Ramanuja says in his commentary about this verse that when one gets this joy, getting this incomparable joy, one is never again engulfed by the pain of life in this world. That is the thing. So this we have to remember. And now Sri Krishna elaborates further. He says, now he describes the difficulty which we have in getting that joy. Why don't all of us get it? Because agre, in the beginning, what it is like, visham iva, like poison, means we don't like the method we have to adopt to get this joy. Because that is accomplished only through great exertion. So in the Sanskrit it is said, Yad agre, in the beginning, Jnana Vairagya Dhyana Samadhi Arambhe Atyanta Ayasa Nirvayatvat Vishayam Iva. It seems like poison. Why? Because Atyanta Ayasa, we have to make tremendous effort, Herculean efforts to attain this. Attain what? Jnana Vairagya Dhyana Samadhi. Jnana, knowledge, that spiritual knowledge. Vairagya means renunciation. Dhyana, that is meditation. And finally, Samadhi. So all these things have to be attained by passing through, fire as it were. Like, we have to, purgation it is called, that you have to pass through this. It is called by Saint John of the Cross, it is said that there is a book, I'm forgetting the name. There he describes this dark night of the soul, dark night of the soul. So we have to pass through this dark night, as it were, where we will find nothing, no comfort. Because we will give up these joys, but we are yet to attain that superior joy. That is why it is called the dark night, where the soul has nothing to cling on to, hardly any support. So it is very, very difficult, and that is why it seems like poison in the beginning. But this poison should be drunk cheerfully. Why? Because pariname, in the end, when we have attained perfection of this knowledge, detachment, samadhi, etc., then we find that this joy is comparable to nectar. It is as fulfilling, as enriching as the greatest nectar the world can offer. Of course, the world does not offer this. This comes from God. So, this is the thing, that first, this joy is not the joy which arises from contact of the organs with the objects of the world. And it does not even arise from the tamasika aspect, that is sleep, etc. That kind of joy, the highest kind of joy, arises from the clear comprehension of the self, means absolute realization of God or our own self. So in the commentary it is said, this kind of the bliss of samadhi, which arises from the clearness of the comprehension of the Atman as a result of the removal of the perception of the non-self, that bliss is spoken of by the yogis as sattvika. Sattvika means born of sattva. That is the thing. This is in a very brief manner. This is what Sri Krishna tells us about the highest kind of joy, which is our goal, which can be said to be true happiness. So, just a little comparison. It has been said that one who strives for that joy has to embrace great suffering in the beginning. So, what that suffering is like? So, as we have seen before also, that the great saint Gyaneshwar, his commentary of the Gita is a little special. Why? Because the wonderful similes he uses. So, in describing what that suffering is like, he says that a sandalwood tree is supposed to be full of snakes. So, if you want that sandalwood, we have to embrace that danger. If we sit at home, we won't get that sandalwood. So, just like a sandalwood which is full of snakes, home of snakes, but which carries such tremendous treasures, such is the joy of the self. Then he says, if one has to light he says, the suffering is as if the floor is taken away from beneath our feet. If you are standing somewhere, but you suddenly find that we have no support. This is a very, very pertinent simile he gives. Why? Because when a sadhaka first starts his sadhana, he is asked to give up the worldly pleasures. But there is a lot of time, ages and ages, before he can actually attain this bliss of God. So in between, where will he be? He will find that he has nothing to stand on. He will feel helpless, no support. So he'll feel as if the floor has slipped away from beneath his feet. Or he says, if a plate full of delicious food, which is kept in front of a man who is hungry for days, if it is suddenly removed, how will he feel? We have to see the simile. This is because all the pleasures, one who has attained discrimination, you will find that all of the pleasures have suddenly gone away from his life. Or a mother's only child is separated from her. So all these similes are telling us what pain one has to embrace, and this may not be over for maybe, it is not a question of 1 month or 2 months or few years also. Maybe the whole life you have to spend in that way. Nobody knows when the grace of God will descend. So this is the price one will have to pay. First, we have to drink this poison, otherwise we cannot get that joy. It is impossible. So those who are familiar with the mythology, our Bhagavata Purana, it has a story that the demons and gods churned the ocean. The mountain was there and the rope was a big snake. So the ocean was churned. Samudra Manthan it is called. And then many things came out from the ocean. So first thing which came out was what? If the first thing would have been nectar, amrita, everybody would have gone home. Everything is over. It was not that easy. The first thing which came out was poison. Amrita or nectar came out at the end. First thing which was poison. Then all sorts of worldly things came out, But if one is ensnared by those worldly things, one cannot get nectar. Last of all, as a complete fulfillment, was nectar brought out of that ocean. So that is a very interesting, we can discuss that also sometime. So this is the thing, that discrimination, first of all, as Raja Maharaj says, don't grab anything which you can get your hands on. Think about what you are doing. So the Bertrand Russell, he wrote that wonderful book of history of Western philosophy. He's written many books, but in that book he says a very pertinent thing, which Swamiji of course has said also. He says the civilized man is distinguished from the savage mainly by prudence, or to use a slightly wider term, forethought. He is willing to endure present pains for the sake of future pleasures, even if the future pleasures are distant. That is what separates a civilized man, a cultured man, from a savage. Savage does not have to think. He will get whatever he has. Kill, loot, murder, do anything. Just get what he wants. But this is not the way of the civilized man. He will think, cogitate, reason out, long-term planning he will do. Then only he will try, after he has decided carefully, not only by his own intelligence, but the intelligence of all these saints and sages. Then when he has carefully decided, he will embark on a course, not before that. This is what Shri Krishna wants us to do. So after this, we come to the verse where Shri Krishna descends a little and he mentions that which we are all familiar with, the kind of pleasure which we are all familiar with. So again I will share the image of that verse. So you can see here. So we can just chant this. I'll chant half verse, then please repeat after me so that we know. So half I will chant. So it begins like this. Vishayendriya sanyogat yattad agre mritopamam pariname visham iva tat sukham rajasam smritam. So this is the verse you can see before you. What is the source of this kind of pleasure? First he describes Shri Krishna. You can see the beginning words. The source is Vishaya and Indriya Sanyoga. The joining of our organs with what? With the objects of the world. That object may not be any non-living matter, any object of the world, any person, anything. When our organs are joined with that, we experience this bliss, not before. So this is a result of our organs joining with something. This has to remember. This is very, very important. We will see why. So then he describes what is that bliss like. In the beginning, yat tad agre amritopamam. In the beginning it is very tasty, very beautiful. We are full of happiness. But unfortunately that happiness does not last long. Pariname, what is the result of that? The result is visham. The result is poisonous. It is so painful. What is that kind of pleasure? That kind of pleasure is called Rajasam Sukham. That is born of Rajas. This is the thing. So it is just the opposite of the first kind of bliss. The first kind of bliss, in the beginning it was terrible, so painful. Oh, Guru has told me I have to meditate for half an hour. In 10 minutes my head starts aching, my legs start aching. In the beginning it is very bad. But in the end, it is like nectar. But here it is just the opposite. In the beginning it is very wonderful. Wow, chocolate ice cream, wonderful taste. Yeah. But in the end it is terrible because it will lead to something, it will lead to bondage. So we will discuss how. Now the first thing to note here, what Sri Krishna says is the source of this bliss. In the first kind of bliss, the source was the realization of God, the realization of the Atman. But here the source is completely different. Here the source is what? When our organs come in contact with the objects of the world. Now by the very definition it shows that this joy is completely dependent on something else. If I can get joy only by coming in contact with something, then my joy depends on that thing. If that thing is gone, my joy is gone. It is as simple as that. So immediately this implies that we are slaves. Because if we seek that joy, we have to depend on objects to get that joy. This is slavery. If I cannot get ice cream, if I am miserable, I am a slave to that. If I cannot get the company of some person, I am miserable, I am a slave to that person. If I don't get wealth, I am miserable, I am a slave to wealth. So the very definition of this joy, the very source of this joy, shows us that it makes us slaves. Because it is dependent on the objects of the world. This is the first point. So, Vishaya Indriya Sanyoga. This is the first point. It is only, this bliss can only be had, this joy can only be had when we are in contact with some objects. And in the beginning, it seems very wonderful. Why? Because you don't have to do anything. Objects are coming, you enjoy, no problem. Who will go to all that trouble? Who will repeat the mantra or dhyana or anything? No problem. Just go to a movie and sit there and you will have instant joy. That is our formula of life. So, but unfortunately, although it seems very pleasurable in the beginning, parinama, the result is not good. Result is like poison. Why? Because sooner or later, we will find that we have become complete slaves to that joy. We cannot live without that. And one day it will have to go. There is no joy which is got from outside which is permanent. How long will you eat an ice cream? How long will you eat a pizza? Maybe a few minutes. How long will you watch a movie? How long can you have the company of someone else? Not maybe an hour or two, that's all. So these things have to go. You cannot hold on to them even if you try. And as a result, what happens? As more this slavery increases, the more our bondage increases. See, those who are addicted to drugs and all, when they are sent to some rehab center or something, the tremendous withdrawal effect, this horrible suffering they have. They cannot stand, they cannot live without those things. Or one who tries to give up smoking, one who tries to give up drinking. For 99% it becomes impossible, they cannot give up that. They have become slaves. And being slaves to this joy means, actually what are we becoming slaves to? Becoming slaves to our body also. Because these joys can only be got through our body. So, we can never taste the freedom. We will always be slaves. So, the end will be very, very bad. Because one day when these things go away, then what are we left with? Zero. So this is why Sri Krishna says that although these things seem very pleasurable in the beginning, but they should be avoided by discrimination. Many times what happens in the schools, colleges, etc., some boy is there who doesn't smoke or drink, so all his friends will be after him. Oh, what is this? You don't do this. You're not alive also. You're dead, you fellow. So in this pressure he will start. Then he cannot give up. So the first thing is to discriminate right from the beginning that this is the result of that joy, so I will not have it. This is the first decision to make. So now let us go into more detail. In the commentaries it is said, so that joy, tat sukham, yat, which is very well known, we all know that joy, as arising from the contact of the objects with the organs, but not from clear comprehension of the self. It is not from the vision of God. It is just contact. That's all. So, at the very beginning, when we are experiencing them, they are like nectar. Why? He says, because of the absence of exertion. We don't have to do anything. It is readily available. We don't have to control the organs. We don't have to sit in meditation. We don't have to exert our mind, concentrate our mind. Nothing we have to do. But although it is nectar like in the beginning, in the end, it is a source of great sorrow. That is why it becomes like Visha. Vishaya tulyam iva. Why? Dukkha hetutvat. It is a source of dukkha only. No real good will come out of that. It can never come. That kind of pleasure, I will not call it happiness because we cannot call it happiness at all. It is just a pleasure which stays just a few moments. That kind of pleasure is called as born of rajas. That is rajasam. This is the thing. So again, we have seen how the great Saint Gyaneshwar has given beautiful examples of the pain when we search after sattvika pleasure. So he again gives the examples of this kind of joy which is very beautiful. It seems so nice at the beginning. So I will just share a few examples. He says, when people hold celebrations at their homes, some occasion, this party, that party, marriage functions, when they are celebrated with great pomp by incurring heavy debt. What will happen? That celebration will be over in a few hours, and that huge mountain of debt go on repaying. Like here, take a house for 25 years mortgage. Anyway, that is a different thing. Or he says, when to a diseased person, somebody has diabetes or something. So when he eats those kinds of food which are prohibited to him, sweets and all that, at first he will like, but what will happen when they go inside? They will increase his disease. Or he says, the friendship of thieves, or the jokes of a flatterer. When somebody is flattering you for something he wants out of you, it will sound so sweet, but you don't know that fellow wants to take something. So, this is the kind of joy which is to be avoided at all costs. If one aims to get that joy, that bliss, which will end his miseries forever. So till we give up this kind of joy, we cannot attain that joy. It is not possible. Because the mind cannot be on two levels at the same time. Either it will be on the level of the senses, or it will be on the level of spirit. It cannot be at two places at the same time. That is why Swami Vivekananda says, spirituality can never be attained unless all these ideas of materialistic pleasures are given up. What is in the senses? Senses means sense organs. What is in the senses? The senses are all delusion. It is all delusion. There is no real happiness there. People wish to retain them even in heaven, even after they are dead. That when we will go to heaven, we will eat this, we will eat that, we will go to some pleasure garden or something. That is what people have in mind generally. So, such men's desires are for the body, for food and drink and enjoyment. It is the materialistic life prolonged. Man cannot think of anything beyond this life. This life is all for the body. But such a man never comes to the concentration which leads to freedom. Because his mind is a slave to all these outside objects. It is not even in his control. So how can he concentrate it? A spoiled child is there in your house. He is completely spoiled. So he is not under your control. If you tell him to study, he won't listen at all. So we are also, our senses are also like that. We have no control over them. They will go say eat this, we have to run, eat this. They will say eat that, we have to go and eat that. We cannot help ourselves. And this slavery, we give the name happiness. This is the biggest tragedy. So again Swami Vivekananda says, we are like moths plunging into the flaming fire, knowing that it will burn us, knowing that the senses only burn us, that they only enhance desire. We have eaten ice cream hundreds of times. Has that desire gone away? It cannot go. It will only increase. People have drunk and smoked and for hundreds of thousands of times. Has that desire gone? It will only increase with the passage of time. Knowing this, we still hanker for those things. That is the biggest tragedy. Then that is why the solution, what is the solution? Solution is very difficult, that is the problem. Solution is what Raja Maharaj says, Swami Brahmananda says, I quote him, if you wish to attain real happiness, you must sacrifice all worldly pleasures, all attachment for fleeting joys. And after that, what to do? After that, just don't sit still. And then direct the whole energy of your mind towards God. Because that is the source of real bliss, the bliss which will never end, which can never go away from us. The more you advance towards God, he says, the greater the bliss you will experience. And the more you are attached to these worldly pleasures, the more you will suffer. Just 3 lines, if we can assimilate, then there is no need of reading anything else. This is the absolutely the nectar which is from all these scriptures. This is the sum and substance of all these scriptures. But we have to hear because we don't listen. We think we are too intelligent. That is the problem. So now let us go to the lowest kind of pleasures. So first pleasure is what? First pleasure is the highest kind. That is, sattvika pleasure which comes from the realization of God, from the comprehension of ourselves. The second kind of pleasure is very, very pleasurable in the beginning. Great fun. Parties, this, that, friends, gossip, this phone, that phone, this television, all these things. Very, very beautiful. But in the end, it is terrible. And the third kind, the lowest kind of pleasure, is despicable from the very beginning. From the beginning to the end, there is no real joy in it at all. What is that third kind? So we will just see. That is called the tamasic pleasure. That is the pleasure born of tamas. That is the lowest kind of pleasure. So again I will just chant the words one half after another, so we can just repeat so that these words go inside our system, so to say. Yad agre chanubandhe cha sukham mohanam atmanah nidralasya pramadotham tat tamasam udaritam. So, tat tamasam, this type of joy is called tamasic joy. And yad agre, from the very beginning, anubandhecha, from the beginning to the end, what it is like, this sukham, this type of joy, from the beginning to the end, mohanam atmana, it is like self-delusion. At least in Rajasika Dukkha there was some pleasure in the beginning, but here it is total failure. From the beginning to the end, it is just delusion, mohanam. And then he says, what is the source of this kind of joy, lowest kind of joy? First is nidra. We all know how difficult to get up in the morning. Oh my God. Especially in these winter times. Let me sleep for 10 minutes more. Then the 10 minutes goes to 1 hour. So first is this nidra. Then alasya, laziness. We don't want to work. Who will strive? Sit nicely, sit in a comfortable way. And pramada. Pramada, here it has been translated as intoxication. So we can take it in any way. Either we can take as our intoxicants in the world also. Smoking, drinking, all these are intoxicants. So, pramadotham, that is, arises from. This bliss arises from these three things. First is sleep, nidra. Second is laziness, alasya. And pramada, from intoxicants. And the characteristic of that bliss is, from the beginning to the end, it is just self-delusion. That is all. There is nothing at all of substance in this kind of, actually you can't even call it bliss. It is just, some kind of morbid pleasure we gain from all these things. So just now, with the little time remaining, we can go into a little detail, not too much. So tat sukham, that joy which agre, at the very beginning, and anubandhe, in the very end, is delusive to oneself. Delusive means what? It misleads us. It takes our life in a completely wrong direction. Intoxicants, those who use all these drugs and all, their whole life is going in a wrong direction. There is not even a little joy in those things, but they destroy their lives because of that. So, delusion, this moha, has been described as what? Something which misleads us from the beginning to the end. Again, another way the word moha has been explained is by Ramanuja. He says, here delusion means the absence of knowledge about things as they are. Not knowing things as they are. Thinking them to be something else. Not knowing that liquor will damage my liver. Liquor will make me a slave to that. Time wastage of money, ruining our health. There is nothing there. But people who are addicted to that think it to be something else. They think as a source of great pleasure. This is called delusion. So each word, see how they've explained. Shri Krishna has just said moha, but how he explains? Moha atra yatha avasthitas tu aprakasha. That is, the real nature of things is not revealed to us. That is what is moha. And this pleasure is arising from nidra alasya pramada, from sleep, laziness and inadvertence. So, effect of sleep we all know. We don't need to, no commentary is needed for that. And what is the result of laziness? Laziness he has described as indolence in sensory perception. All our sensory perceptions are dim. When we are lazy, what happens? Can't even open my eyes. So everything becomes dim. Our senses don't function. A lazy person is always feeling sleepy. So when sensory activities are slow, dimness of knowledge results. That is the result of laziness. And the next word is pramada. Pramada, intoxication. So what is the meaning of pramada? Wonderful commentary is there. It says, living only in a realm of fancy. That is it. We live in an imaginary world. We describe intoxication in this way. This is a very wonderful definition. Living in a world which has no existence. So naturally, when we are always living in that fictional world, we will have no idea of what the world is really like. And this fiction is poured into our brains from our very childhood. From the story of Cinderella right away. It will end with what? And they lived happily ever after. All fairy tales end with that. And we are also doing the same thing even when we grow up. All these movies, all these advertisements, all these things which are poured into our brain by all this media day and night, what are they leading to? They are leading to the same thing. People will see, these young people will see some romantic something on the screen. Just 2 days ago I had heard the news that one lady had traveled 3,000 miles to meet that some person. What did he do? He finished her. For what? Her organs. This is the world. This is happening. But because we are living in an imaginary world, people are completely detached from the real world. That has been described as pramada. All these advertisements, whenever some version of any new phone or something is released, my God, you should see the advertisements. All these lights, sound, and the way they will, move all those things. What is there actually there? It is just like an ordinary thing. But they are fooling us day and night, and we are being fooled. They're making us living in an imaginary world that if you get this, all your life problems will be solved. And if you don't get this, absolutely futile living. Don't even think of living. Yeah, this is the thing which they manufacture before us. And like fools, we are getting into this net. We are believing these people. If you really compare all the technical specifications of one product and the new version, you'll hardly find any difference. But we are spending millions of dollars or rupees or whatever. The whole market, this whole market is based on making people believe something which is not. As simple as that. That is all. Selfish people are doing this and we are falling into the net. So this can also be interpreted as pramada, which is delusion. Living in a world which is completely detached from the real world. So what will it lead to? It will lead to only misery, because one day we have to descend to the real world. No, we cannot remain in that false world forever. And when we come down, it will be terrible. So in this way, of course, many things are there, many practical advice a lot of advice has been given by many other commentators, but we will have to leave it for when we start discussing the Gita verse by verse. So this is just a sort of introduction. So just to end this last verse, so this joy, this kind of joy, the lowest kind of joy springs from only these things. From nidra, alasya and pramada, that is from sleep, laziness and delusion, not from the clear comprehension of the Atman, nor from the contact of the objects with their organs. So this kind of joy is the lowest and is said to be tamasa, means born of tamas. That is the thing. So here Sri Krishna describes for us what the kinds of pleasures or joy really are. People don't even know. Pleasure means something which will give me instant happiness. That is the idea which we have of pleasure. That is all. But it is not so. That kind of pleasure will not last long and will not have good results also. So really, if you want to be happy, what is the course to be followed? This has been explained by examining the kinds of joy each person in the world experiences, going into detail, examining, and then coming to a conclusion that which joy we should strive for actually and which we should avoid at all costs. This is the thing. So let us end here today. Om Shanti 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 Hari